Hi everyone, it's been a while since we made a video, but we're here covering some fundamentals today, specifically priming and pre-shading. Got a quick and basic kit here. This is the Human Fighter kit from WizKids. It comes with two plastic fighter types with some armor on them, and I'm actually preparing these for a class that's coming up. And to do so, I'm going to be doing a little bit of black and white pre-shading. So one of the cool things about the WizKids minis is that they come pre-primed, so you can paint directly on them. However, if you don't like the primer on them already, you can paint right over it. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Now there's this clear plastic bit. We're going to be covering that up with a little bit of something I like to call silly putty. Well, everybody calls it silly putty. Here you go. So yeah, silly putty is an awesome masking material for airbrushing because it does not activate or peel up paint underneath. It just kind of hangs onto your mini, and you can see that we've applied some here around the sword, and we'll just spray airbrush primer right over it. Once we're done, we'll remove it, and it will kind of get eaten back into the silly putty. Eventually the silly putty will kind of go bad, but it takes some time. One thing I like to do when I batch paint is to prime in large batches. I'm using some double-sided tape here on a piece of cardboard that was cut off of a packaging box, and I'm putting down 2 strips of this. I'll be attaching the minis by just pressing them directly on with their bases to the double-sided tape. And we're going to be keeping them stuck on there until we're done priming them. Once we're done, we're just going to pull them right off. So here's where we get to some actual painting. I'm going to be using some Stynylrez black primer and Stynylrez white primer to do my pre-shading here. Now this is a pretty standard combination for me. I'll be doing this through an airbrush, so I can take it nice and easy and I'll have a lot of control. One option you might consider is using a white ink instead of a white primer. Some find this a little bit smoother to apply. They're both very valid and very useful ways of doing this. Your mileage may vary. Now I've got my airbrush compressor charged up and I'm going to be getting out the airbrush here. Now one thing to note is when we are spraying, we spray in a cone in a kind of a triangle, and when we get to the white, we will be spraying downwards. We're going to be using that directional property of the airbrush to get a nice pre-shade. We're going to be starting off with the black primer first, and we're going to be coating the entirety of the minis with the black primer. So make sure you get in and around all the nooks and crannies. An awesome tool to point out when you're doing this is the heat tool. Now I'm using a specific heat tool that's made for shrink wrapping, but you can use a hair dryer or what have you. Just be careful not to melt your minis. It's a good way to get that primer to dry just a little bit faster. So once we're ready, we're going to get out our white primer, and this is going to be the most technical part of the process, which don't get intimidated. This is basically just spraying in a single direction without rotating the direction of your minis so that the white paint is approaching from only one vector. Makes sense, right? Sure. So you'll notice the white paint slowly appearing here. I'm trying to take it fairly easy, but this is still a pretty quick step. If you go over with a pass or two of your white paint and find that it is still a little bit dull and murky, you might go over it with one more, but try not to overdo it with the white, because you will lose a lot of that shadow. A lot of that detail is really important later on for getting that depth and feel for the mini that we want. Just letting you see how I take this process in real time, because this is kind of the important part of it. Just make sure that the highlights kind of allow you to see more of the details of the mini. Make sure that you hit the face and the focal points of the mini, wherever those might be, and just try to take it easy. If you really do get too much white on there, just go back in and add some shadow in with your black paint again. And really, that's all there is to it. This is what your minis are going to look like once they've been pre-shaded. And at this point, you can do one of two things. You can either use this as kind of a paint by numbers guide on where to put your highlights and your shadows, or you can use things like washes, contrast, speed paints, and just glazing in general to get a good look. In fact, I like using Pro Acryl Transparents as well. They give you a very cool look. And this is what the knights eventually look like. A little bit of wash tech. This is about 80% wash and contrast. So until next time, thank you so much for joining in, and catch you on Twitch. Make sure to like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Later.